You gotta have a podcast.
You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast. You gotta have a podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to You Gotta Have a Podcast. I'm Angela Palladino, and I got another great episode here for you today. I'm really excited about this one because we cover a huge variety of topics that sort of run the gamut of many different assets of the entertainment industry and the creative work that we do. Today, I am joined by actor, writer, musical comedy mastermind, Doug Widick. Doug is a founding member of the hip-hop improv team North Coast and co-creator and star of the live show Toxic Masculinity the Musical, which ran off-Broadway for nearly a year in 2019 through 2020, and it was a damn good show. Doug and I have collaborated before on a number of projects, and he is such a hard-working, hilarious, committed, and driven, and just kind human being. And it was such a joy to just sit down and talk with him about the industry and creativity and hurdles and gatekeepers and really just all the bullshit. Because these are the types of conversations that Doug and I have when we go out to lunch, which, we haven't done in a year because of the pandemic. But it was nice to have a one-on-one hour with him, which we really got into it and really dug deep. And I think you're going to love this conversation because I did too. I know I say that every time, but God damn it, it's true. It is so fucking true. Here is my conversation with Doug Widick.
Ken and I are trying to write our pilot now because we know when things pick up again in a super official way. We had a lot of momentum, and so we're trying to make sure that we have our pockets full when the world reopens. But depending on your level of success, the world has reopened. I feel like people who were booking are booking again. People who had the super dope agents and stuff. But yeah, I feel like people who are that one step towards not always having to audition for stuff, getting offers, we're we're in purgatory right now. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm even just heartened that heartened, not hardened.
You're hardened. You're such a bro.
I'm just glad to see that auditions are coming back. I know you were doing you seem like the type of person who when there is downtime, you're fuck it, I'm gonna get all my shit together to cobble something together, even though it's this weird nothing is happening time. And I noticed you were working on your very own songs so much more. Personally, I was getting my shit together as far as audio editing and redoing my resume and all that sort of thing.
Nice.
Did you feel that kind of momentum to at least get your ducks in a row?
Totally. Yeah. I was okay, where do my skills intersect where that I can make money remotely and have some sort of business model that's scalable? Because North Coast is scalable, right? I don't have to be there for every North Coast show, but that is something that I can create that is me at my desk. And I was trying to just generate whatever I could. Because I was also working all day when it was teaching, and teaching is to anybody here listening right now who's never taught before, know this: your teacher is working so hard. Teaching is intense mental energy. It is straight up spending one of the most valuable assets you have, which is your mental energy. And if your student is being unappreciative of that, that sucks. But with Very Own Song, I got really kind of and still am obsessed with the idea of making it a bigger and better thing. And Very Own Song it's this weird thing where it's it exists. Obviously you can get custom jingles from all sorts of places, but I've made it personal, but also comedically based. And you're not getting the song from a songwriter, you're getting it from a comedian. And I feel that's my unique kind of value proposition. So yeah, I started spending way more time on that. And I was whether this contributes to my industry standing and my branding or not, which I actually do think it helps with my social media branding, because people are oh, right, Doug does write songs.
Yeah.
But whether it helps with getting, whatever lines on a 30-minute sitcom, I feel Very Own Song is something that as I build and develop the website and the business system when orders come in, and like a big list of songwriters, and make more tracks and beats. Like I'm building an asset that I actually have control and power over, which is a very rare thing in our world. So one thing that I've always been bothered by is like when you're auditioning, you are literally the bottom of the totem pole. And that's just always kind of bugged me. Like I've always just been like, oh, so we're nothing. We have no, like, we're not like, you could try to see 1,000 actors and they'll all show up. And like, it like, I just feel like I know so many wonderfully intellectual, talented actors who regularly don't book. And I've always felt like I was like, can't there be some sort of like, and this doesn't exist and it never will exist, but can't there be some sort of like certified, like been at it for a while, like badge where it's like, look, I didn't just show up to New York yesterday. And they would never do that because there are great people who show up to New York yesterday. But sometimes it does kind of bug me out when I'll go on a commercial audition and I'll be in the room with someone who's clearly never auditioned before. And like one time, I know I've been on change the subject like 6 times in one answer. I apologize.
No, please.
Well, one time I was in an audition and a woman slapped me. And
oh no,
it was like fake slap. You're supposed to do a fake slap if you're going to do that.
Right.
And it like derailed the whole thing. And it was just awful. And then in another audition, a woman negated every single offer I made. And it was an improv based audition. And I even posted about it. And I got a phone call from the casting director later that day being like, we want you to come back in and do it again with someone who yes ands you. And so I got to do it again. But auditioning is just
good at least.
Yeah. I know casting directors do their best to like do groups and pairings and stuff based on like look and experience and stuff. But sometimes it does feel sometimes it does feel where it's like, I guess it's also like a non-union and union thing where it's like sometimes you'll audition with people who it just feels like they haven't done many auditions before. And that's okay too. Sometimes there's fun in that and I'm not judging it. It's just sometimes it's like, you know, our time is valuable. And so it's like going in auditions where you either feel like you don't have a real shot at getting it based on the breakdown or you're in the room with someone who's kind of sabotaging the take. Those can be frustrating moments.
It's so frustrating. The last commercial audition I did before COVID that wasn't VO was literally there was storyboards on the like sides that they gave us. It was like a cartoon drawing of Nicole Byer. It was literally Nicole Byer. And like in the waiting room was like every white girl UCB comedian. Like it was like me and Carly Ann Philbin and like a bunch of other people. And we were like, why are we here? Like they want Nicole Byer. Like we are not Nicole Byer. We're nowhere near her type. Like I just don't understand.
Oh my God.
It was truly like almost a photographic like storyboard. It was just a picture of her. And we were just like, we're not right for this. Like who the fuck brought us in for this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And then we went in and they were like, yep, you're not what we're looking for. Like it was like very clear the moment you step in the door and their eyes sunk again because it was like another not what they were looking for person. Right. And it was just like, it's so weird.
Like, do you ever feel like there is a lot of collective time wasted?
Oh yeah, all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So many things. Like
sometimes I'm like, you know what you want. You did it. Like I respect what the union tried to do where they make it so that you see a certain amount of people for every role. But sometimes I feel like that's actually not good.
No.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, the thing is that rule of like seeing a certain amount of people is it's just wasting everyone's time. Like in theory, it's like, wow, someone could really surprise you. But I think like, especially like directors or casting agents, you know, unless they specifically say we don't know what we want, they know what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, and also they're not, I feel like there isn't always the strongest sense where it's like the CDs report to the directors and the producers and like, and it's like sometimes like that you're like, okay, well, are you recommending people? Like, I know that they have a list of people, but like, how much does that matter? And I do know that casting directors have more of a say than ever. Like, they're even starting to get awards and stuff. I think Maisel and like some shows are starting to like get awards for casting. But you do get a sense sometimes where it's like, let's get the director in here and like, let's get your top 7 and like pick from there. Like, I get it. I get why the system is the way it is. It's very formalized right now. And I know people would complain if it was any other way and if it was more direct. And sometimes it is direct and the offers are direct. And that's cool. But yeah, I do feel the time I'm like, man, we could solve some serious problems in the world with all the time we're spending.
Oh, yeah. I mean, weirdly, like on the back end of that, like I produce and direct, and I mostly direct commercials, but I produce a lot of branded content for other big agencies. And I will be producing for a different director who will have me go out for tapes like 15 different times, and we'll look at so many people. And I'm just like, it's just like a weird pickiness that's just like, this is a branded content spot that's going to get like 600 views on YouTube. Like, just pick one of these very qualified, fine people. Like, what the fuck you're not.
Right.
You're
that's
not
why I
casting
did
an Oscar
direct
film.
with the combos thing. I was like,
oh yeah,
that was really fun. But I was like, I'm not gonna hold auditions for this. I know so many comedians. Like, I'm just gonna email people directly.
Wait, if I have like a client, especially a commercial or branded thing that I'm directing, that like I'll ask people I know specifically that I want to do it. Like, I know plenty of very talented actors and comedians. I'll be like, can you just put yourself on tape? Like, I really want you. I just have to like convince the client. But the only time I've ever had to actually like hold like a call was when I shot a commercial in Minneapolis last year, and we were shooting locally, and I didn't know anybody in Minneapolis. So I had to work
Yeah,
with.
I remember that. And like, you had issues with the crew too, didn't you?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, this was like, I hired an on the ground Minneapolis producer who was prepping with me the whole time. I hired her way in advance. And then this other director who is local in Minneapolis was like, got a gig like the 3 or 4 days before my shoot, and then took my producer and took my whole crew, because it was like my producer's go-to people. And they were all like, sorry, but like, you're probably never going to shoot something here, and this person hires us all the time. So we're going to just bail on you and take the work from this person that we work with all the time. And I was like, fuck. But I mean, luckily that producer was really apologetic, and she replaced herself with another great producer on the ground there, who then recrewed me up in like a day.
Whoa. And
we were back on our feet, and it was fine.
Yeah.
But it was just like really shitty, because I was like, these people signed deal, like, I, not to get too in the weeds with the production stuff, but I'm like, you guys signed deal memos. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to fight you if you don't want to be on my set, like, because you could just not show up anyway and screw me. But like, you signed a deal memo. Like, you said you would be my crew. Like,
right.
You already gave me a W-9. Like,
yeah, what the hell? And you were going to pay them. Did they just
it
jump
was
to
very
more
well
money?
paid. It was union.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's like the fleeting nature of what we do. Like a dental hygienist doesn't show up. There's serious repercussions to that. But someone doesn't show up for their local grip thing, they're going to get hit up again, because there's, not many grips, or I don't know, but it feels like the job
I mean, especially they were like, we don't know you. You're from New York. You're coming in town to shoot this one time, and you may never come back here and shoot anything again. So we're going to go drop you for this guy who always hires us because we don't want to make him mad, basically.
Allegiances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So weird how that is such a thing for like the whole industry. It's one of the things that I regret, not like, it wasn't like direct piece of advice, but it was, people are always like, it's all about networking. It's all about networking. And I'd be like, yeah, it is. And like, I would try to network, and like, be really friendly to people on set and work with them or whatever. But there's also this like different part of networking that's in the industry too. That's like less like business networking and more like you're out at the bar with these people all the time. That's why they're booking you on whatever show or whatever it is. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The nepotism, I mean, is, let's be real here. It's like 90% of who works with who. You'll watch shows and you'll be like, oh, those people are all friends. Like they were friends before they got famous. Now they're friends now, and they're all booking and working with each other. And so when the UCB would like be like showbiz, they would say the theater was a meritocracy. I think they never, they never said that the show business was a meritocracy, because I think they would know how silly that sounded. Because it is not a meritocracy. It is a place where people work with who they want to work with once they have the ability to do so and the budgets to do so. And then if there are spots where they don't know who they want to work with, then they go and search and interview and hire. But like networking, like going out to bars, I feel like that phase of my development, like I don't love that anymore. Like I used to be like, oh, let me talk to like, oh, that team is going out for drinks, like that improv team or that sketch group, they're all at McManus. Like that phase that's like a very like kind of emotionally exhausting, socially like intense thing to do. I much prefer like 5 people going out who like don't know each other very well, but like be like, hey, I've always seen you around. Like, why don't us 3 hang out? Like a very targeted networking. Yeah. I love that. Like I hung out with Glo Tavares recently. And we just would
How's
go.
She doing? She good?
Well, it was before COVID, but we would hang out. Before we were friends, I was like, I want to be your friend. Let's hang out. And we went and got hot dogs. And like now we do these hot dog hangs a couple times a year. And it's just like, it's so funny that like that's how I network with Glo, and we're also friends, but like that was the way I chose to get, like, instead of like, oh, I'm just gonna go to like some big general mixer. Like general mixers, I know they have their purpose, but they definitely stress me out.
Yeah, no, they stress me out so much too that I'm like, I just don't do them. Yeah, like I'm a little bit antisocial, and I always have been, but I do like hanging out with people. But when it comes to those big group things, like I very rarely would just like show up at McManus, because even though I knew everyone, I'd be like, I don't know. But like I mean, now that I think of it though, you did the same thing to me when we were starting to get to know each other. You were just like, we should get lunch. And I was like, no, someone hasn't asked me to lunch in a while. Okay, let's get lunch.
Yeah, we went to 5 Napkin Burger.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, like that's more my speed.
Yeah, I love that, like really intentional sort of like, also it's just like nicer. I love that sort of thing because I love really like having one-on-one sort of human conversations with people rather than just being in a massive group and only doing bits, and then you walk away and you're like, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah, it's very performative. Like at McManus, it was like bits and over drinking, and then like there would be that sort of pressure to stay late. And I was like, oh, I'm good. Like I've been here for 90 minutes to 2 hours. Like I feel like I got what I needed out of this, you know? And maybe that's like, maybe I'm the one who's like being a user in that situation. And it's like, come on, just like get to know, like make these your actual real friends. But sometimes I felt like I was like, oh, are we all hanging out here to avoid working on something like that pilot or that like, like I get that a lot too at the pit. Like you'll be at the pit late and you're like, everyone's talking about stuff. And I get it, you got to blow off steam and like have a drink with your friends or your team post show. That's totally fine. But I'm talking about the people who are there like four to 5 nights a week. I'm like, y'all are talking about your favorite comedians, and that's great. But what about like working on you making yourself your favorite comedian? That's much scarier prospect. Putting in the work.
That's the thing. You used to come up doing indie shows or doing shows at theaters where you're not getting paid. And there's a lot of people in those circles that are really just there for social aspect. And they're very funny. Yeah. And like they perform really well on stage, but they don't put in a lot of the effort outside of, you know,
Yeah.
attending improv practice or whatever it might be like.
Yeah.
But then there's another portion of people that are also there, but they're also the ones that are, you know, or working on their writing pilots or writing their own sketch shows or, you know, creating their own stuff outside of like the bar after the show.
Yeah.
And like, I'm always more interested in talking to those people because I could like see that they're like, I'm going to do everything I can to keep doing this thing that I love and not just as a hobbyist.
Totally. Yeah. The hobbyist versus like the people who want to pursue comedy professionally has always been fascinating to me. Like, there's one part of me that's like, yeah, you know, if you're good, you're good, right? Then there's the other part of me that's like, can they do it on Mondays through Thursdays, and can we have the weekends? Like, if we're the ones trying to get jobs, you know, it's like, and I know that is potentially problematic, but the truth is like if I'm working on the same amount of hours that I would work on a profession, then I want to get more stage time. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I'm the problem.
It's hard because there are very funny people that are performing at theaters, like improv theaters like that are more of hobbyists in one way that like they're not doing any other career oriented stuff other than getting, you know, spending 10 years getting very good at improv. And like, yes, they're very good at improv. They're very funny, but like, yeah, it is like you don't seem like you want to or intend to actually have a career that pays.
Do you ever feel like the theaters should take a little more responsibility to push people like out of the nest into writing and characters?
I think they should. And honestly, I never would say that like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I feel like because, you know, also fuck me for talking about this because I was very much like felt that eventually I realized that I was not kind of a fit for that sort of style of comedy, like the improv stuff. And then I naturally turned away from it and started doing other things like stand up and writing.
And you're such a freaking awesome stand-up, by the way. Like, if you haven't seen Angela do stand-up, Google it right now because she's so dang good.
Thank you.
You are. You've got the rhythm and like the point of view and everything.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the thing was, though, like, it was never something I really saw myself doing. And it not really even being on stage as a comedian is something I never really saw myself doing. I started as a writer and I was writing like sketch and a couple of pilots when I was like really young. And then by like, you know, 23, really young. And then I started doing improv because I wanted to be a better writer. And then I just like accidentally was in a cult and obsessed for like 3 years until I realized like, oh, I don't think I really fit what they're looking for. So I'm going to go do stand up. And then I was like, oh, well, this is working out very well, very fast. And that's lovely. Look at that.
Yeah. See, the stand up world is like more represents, I'm going to make a weird analogy, but I feel like the stand-up world is more capitalism and the improv world is more socialist and communist, in that like in the stand-up world, you're funny or you're not. You know, you get the laugh or you don't. And we'll pay you if you're good and get the hell out of here. The show's over. Fuck you, we'll never see you again. Whereas like in improv, there's a little bit more of like regulated market where it's like, yeah, keep taking these classes. You'll get stage time. Like you might not get on a house team, but you can get on a house team at this place. Like they'll put you on a house team and you might be able to go for longer, sort of not knowing that you might not be the best. And that's okay if you're pursuing the craft at a level to try to be competitive, but the problem is that if the market lies, I hate that I'm using this analogy now.
I love it. Okay. I actually love it.
Okay, great. So then I'll keep going. But like, I just feel like the real-time feedback that's given to you sometimes in improv isn't the truest because people come to see their friends perform. So sometimes you get laughs that aren't real, and you don't get that experience of performing in front of people that don't know you, which I feel like the most growing I've ever done as an improviser has been in front of houses that don't know me. And that's on the road or weird corporate gigs or weird other audiences that North Coast has performed for. Like, that's when I started to be like, oh, no one's coming to save me. And
Yeah.
that's when I feel like I started getting better at improv. And now after 11 years, I finally feel like I'm at the point where I feel like I can hold my own with very little stress on stage as an improviser.
Yeah, completely agree. Like, the first time I was so trepidatious about performing because I was really convinced that I was a shitty performer. And I was like, what is this about? I was like, I guess maybe I'm just not funny. And I'm only getting laughs at indie shows because my friends are laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started doing stand-up. And the first time I did like a show at Greenwich Comedy Club that it was my first time doing a club show. Like I had done like a bunch of mics and I had done like a bunch of like indie shows or some Brooklyn alt shows, but it was my first time doing a club show, and club shows are only tourists mostly.
Yeah.
There's like the 5 other comics that are on the lineup, and then all the audience is tourists.
Yeah.
And I got like good laughs
At a
and I
club
did
show.
like decently well at a club show. And I was like, oh, okay. These I would much rather perform in front of randoms because I was like, I know how to like make random strangers laugh. I don't know.
That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Like that actually is such a valuable lesson though. It's that that's one institution's opinion of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it took me not as long as some other people. It took me like 3 years to be like, okay, you know who I am. I've been around for enough time. I've been doing enough shows. I don't think I give a shit about getting any better than I currently am.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to like dip and try something else. Also, very few instances, yourself included with North Coast, I was like, almost no one makes a full ass living off of improv. So I got to figure out other ways to make a living as a comedian and a filmmaker or video person. I got to figure out other avenues to like actually making money. And then, I got into doing stand up, which, I was able to get paid,
Incredible.
not a full living, but get paid for shows. And like, I got into writing more and I got some writing jobs. And
I'll say this, like I followed the treadmill until I got on a team. I did 3 years on mod and it is fun, but like at the same time, doing your own projects is the way the industry actually like if you could make a graph that's like people who got agents from Herald Night and people who got agents and managers from Spanx or stand up, the graph would be completely to the right because it would all be people who actually created stuff because those institutions just rarely were industry coming to them from what I heard.
I mean, that's why, like, the times I would go back and do stuff there, I would be on, like, some stand-up showcases sometimes. I put up some Spanx. And it was all because, like, I can invite industry to this, and they'll go because it's a reputable theater.
Exactly.
Like, but, like, this is not, like, it was less about, trying to be successful in that theater itself and more about, like, the perception of like for those gatekeepers of the industry of like, well, you've had running shows at the theater and you like, oh, I saw her do stand up there once and like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, now none of it matters.
Is some form of it going to come back? Like my personal preference would be honestly that like more theaters like IA pop up with like super tight garden, super thin, like it's like, you have to do a lot of training and like it's a super tight community and everybody knows each other at the theater and everybody gets paid. Like that's how Improv Asylum runs. And like I've always thought that was really cool. I was like, I loved what UCB was and look, I worship that place just as much as anybody else, especially 26th Street. Like that was Yankee Stadium of comedy for my whole 20s until they moved. And Hell's Kitchen was cool for different reasons, but like the memories I have in Chelsea, those are some of the most special comedy memories I have.
Right.
And I hope that all these theaters that popped up because they were inspired by UCB, I hope that the future is brighter for up and coming comedians to feel like they're not on this constant, like, where do I stand? I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the where do I stand thing.
Yeah, especially when you're in a theater like that, because it's one thing if you are an actor and you're just auditioning out in the world and like you're trying to put up plays or whatever, or like you're in a small theater company or you're just going and doing auditions. It's a little bit easier to like be understanding of the where do I stand, because it is also nebulous and there's not this one like deity deciding everything. But like when you're in a theater like UCB, where there's a file on you in a back room somewhere and they know how they stand on you.
Right. I never looked at my grades. I was too scared.
You're saying that like there is a right way and a wrong way to do comedy. And I'm like, that is stupid. But I also understand that like they had to write a book, and you can't write something called a manual on how to do something if you just like draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they were so firm, and it works. Game works. And it's definitely like a pattern that emerges naturally. But like their codification of it, they never. I actually didn't finish the manual, but I hope they put exemptions section in it, because every great improviser regularly breaks the rules. That's how you become great. You can't get great if you're still at the rung where you're doing everything by the books. Every actually innovative artist takes the routines and rules, fucks with them. Like Eddie Van Halen, the whole reason it was such a giant loss to lose him as a guitarist wasn't because he was the most rote musician. He's on an interview on the record saying it's music theory, not music law. And so they should call it improv theory. I think that would actually help a lot of people. It's like, here's the theory we teach, and then you can go and do whatever you want. And a lot of teachers eventually would get to that. Once you were in ASPs, they'd be like, yeah, like there's the UCB method, but there's also like slow play and like, you know.
Yeah. It wasn't until later that you got sort of there. And they teach the same sort of thing with their sketch classes. And I was talking to Brian McElhenney recently about like sketch writing and game, and how it's like you can't, like, if you write a gamey sketch that is just like game beat, it's fucking boring and soulless.
Yeah, well, when I first came to Pop Roulette, that was all I knew how to do, and they were all like pretty evolved. Like, especially Matt and Sudi, they had figured out like you have a game and then you write jokes inside of it. And also they were being more analytical to like the great sketch shows. Like, whereas I was like, I follow UCB, I do what UCB says. Like, they were like studying SNL at the molecular level of like, oh, SNL has a game, but then they're like putting all these little jokes inside of it. And then I started realizing, oh, that's actually what the great UCB teachers do, but they have to, in the first levels, teach game beat by game beat. All you have is the frame, but you don't have any pictures inside of it.
Yeah. And that's like one of the things that I feel like when you go out and you create your own stuff that is not going to be judged for a grade or be judged for a run at the theater, and like you create your own stuff to just create the best thing that you can.
Yeah.
That's when it's like you actually end up pushing yourselves to just be funny. And like, because every sketch teacher or sketch writer will tell you like, yes, there's rules, unless it's funny. Like,
Yeah.
unless it's just funny and it breaks all the rules and who cares as long as it's funny.
Yeah. Neil Casey in my level 2 was like, what you're doing right there is inherently funny. It's not a game, but that thing you were doing to get laughs, that was funny.
Yeah.
And
that's why he's so brilliant.
Oh my God. Maybe the best, like one of the best living. I think like I've always like had like there's the best improvisers and then there's the funniest improvisers.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Neil is like the most well-rounded between the both of those.
Yeah, he's so great.
One thing, what was I gonna say? Oh, I think You Should Leave is a good example of a show that it's like, he obviously knows game, but he's just doing what he wants within it.
Absolutely.
Do you like chase the social media personal branding thing? Like, have you gotten into the weeds with a lot of people on your podcast about that?
I try not to chase it very much. I did for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was just like, what, who gives a fuck? Like, one thing I realized with like especially in Twitter and like comedy Twitter and just writing jokes is that I can write a joke and it'll be like a fine joke. It'll be funny, whatever. And then someone else with, 10 times as many followers as I have, or 20 times or 100 times, literally 100 times as many followers as I have, because I have like 2,000, can tweet the same joke word for word almost. And, it's usually a case of parallel thought. I'm not saying anyone's stealing my jokes because they're like a lot of times low hanging fruit if it's a Twitter joke. But like someone can with a much, much bigger audience can tweet the same thing that I tweeted and it'll go massively viral. And I'm like, cool, I'm not funny. It's just I don't have the reach. Like, for example, I won't say when this happened, but so it leaves it to a little ambiguity. But one time I tweeted a joke and like 2 hours later, one of the head writers of SNL tweeted the same joke and it went super viral. And I was like, cool. It's a really low hanging fruit joke. It's like a Twitter joke. It's not meant to be super like pervasive.
Does that
or
person
anything.
follow
you?
Just curious.
I don't think they do.
Okay.
But they might. I know that we're friends on Facebook. Yeah. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But
it's Twitter.
But I was like, that if I had an audience wider, it's like, oh, it's not that my material's bad. It's just that like my 2,000 followers, I'm only going to get a few, unless occasionally I'll have something pop off. But like on the regular, I'm not getting like 100,000 likes.
Precisely. Yeah. I had one viral tweet this year, and it was because Akilah Hughes retweeted
Love
it.
Akilah.
And it went, it was just like, oh, right. If I had that many followers, this wouldn't be so hard. That's like part of why I'm chasing it all, is because it's just like giving yourself a follower base who can, see your stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's so funny that you say that, because I had one very, very viral tweet this year as well, that to the point where I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to act.
Oh, yeah. And it can be scary.
And it was it was because Akilah retweeted it.
Oh, my God. Really?
Yeah. We should send her a fruit basket.
Yeah, we'll send her a fruit basket in California.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
It is so weird. Like, I recently just got turned off my Instagram for a couple of days and my Twitter for a couple of days because I was like, I can't fucking look at this shit anymore. It just makes me sad sometimes, especially because like I see people, there's like this icky sort of desperation sometimes with people's posts.
Yeah.
Especially more on Instagram, where I'm like, I know you, you're not like my best friend, but I know you well enough to know that like, this isn't your personality. And it's like really kind of ew to like see you act this way. Not that it's like, it's just like not them. So it's like, it's not like it's necessarily bad or anything. And I'm just like, it's just so strange to see like you like morph into this like weird cartoonish version of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
On social media.
Yeah. And people do like millennial speak, even though they're like in their 30s. And you're like, do you really talk that way? And it's like, oh, no, that's like how I talk on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, fellow kids.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, I do wonder what some of the comedians whose whole brand is about around their youth, like who they're going to turn into. Like, and these are people who I came up with and love and admire. I'm like, well, once you have to face the music and you're 35, like when that hits, who you gonna be? And like some people, I see it the natural evolution towards like cynical comedy or like positivity, gratitude comedy, which is, I guess, a thing because I definitely do it. But like it is interesting to see that social media, everyone's constantly chasing youth on it.
That's so funny. You're so right. And I think maybe one of the reasons I am not, internet famous is because I have been like a 45-year-old woman since I was 18.
I'm
like
obsessed with that.
Like I make jokes about, like yesterday I made a joke about Greta Garbo and no one got it. I was that. Like, well, whatever.
I missed
it's funny.
it.
I'm writing on a show right now. And I had a joke about Elizabeth. What?
The Greta Garbo sketch show?
The Greta Garbo sketch show. Yeah, she's coming out of hiding. I'm writing on this A&E show that I was telling you about. That's like for their YouTube channel, so it's like aimed at a younger demographic. And I wrote a joke about Elizabeth Taylor, and I got one note from the network on the whole script, and the only note was like, "No one's gonna understand this Elizabeth Taylor joke. Can you please take it out?" And I was like, "Okay." They're like, "This is our audience doesn't know who this is."
That's insane.
Yeah, it is so interesting how like. It is, and I think that's like kind of goes back to like the UCB conversation we were having, or even just like the auditioning stuff. It's like know your audience and also know what to expect from them. And just because you're not getting the reaction that you want from whoever's in front of you doesn't mean that what you're doing is not good. It just means that like they might not be the people that want to see it.
Exactly.
I mean, so you're like the type of guy who you do a lot of different stuff, but it all like kind of becomes like part of your, for lack of a better word, personal brand. Like, because I do think of you as a really brilliant performer and improviser, but also a great just like comedic actor, like not just improv. Because there are some people that can do improv really well, but are not good actors.
Yeah.
But and you also write and you also make music and you blend that all together by writing musicals and performing in them. So like, do you think that there's any one set path, like one set of stairs to go up? Or do you think that like you're building your staircase from different types of wood or what are your like, what's your perspective on like that idea?
Such a good question. So I think that as toxic as it is, I think social media has now given us the opportunity to wrestle back some control from the branding part of the conversation. So it used to be like, okay, Britney Spears, she's on the Mickey Mouse Club. Look at this girl. Okay, now we're going to brand her. We're going to put her in pigtails. We're going to make her sing these songs and we're creating this brand around her, right? Whereas if Britney Spears was coming up now, she might have been posting acoustic covers and she could have been a moody Billie Eilish type on her own volition. Like Billie Eilish chose her fucking brand, whereas Britney Spears had no say. And so it's this interesting world we're living in where you can follow the pangs of your own heart a little bit more and you can decide how you're going to be perceived through these channels where you can get sometimes just as big as audience as the paid work channels, right? You look at Sarah Cooper, she's getting broadcast network numbers on her Twitter. Yeah. Which is just unreal. And so for me, first off, I'm like in my head, I'm like, sometimes I worry that I'm spread too thin because I'm like, doing North Coast, very own song, doing the Mod Night, like all these things. And I've had a lot of people tell me that I'm spread too thin before. And the truth is like, yeah, but it's all musical comedy. I've always just been doing musical comedy and musical improv. It's like, that's the umbrella it all falls under.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that we have a really interesting, unique moment now to make more decisions around how we want to be perceived. Now, whether people perceive you that way or not, even if you've chosen it, is a different conversation. Because it's like similar to the Buscemi being like, hello, fellow teens.
Yeah.
Because people can sniff out when you're choosing something that isn't authentic to you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally started as like a writer and a filmmaker and like making short films and writing my own material, and they were funny, and I was like, oh well, I want to get more into comedy so that I can be funnier at this, because I can't tell you how many really funny scripts I've seen completely die in production, or even worse, they got shot right, and then someone who is not a comedian or does not have good sense of comedic sensibilities edits it.
Oh no.
And it just fucking dies.
Yeah.
Like, so much of funny stuff that you see on TV is directors who are comedians or have great comedic sensibilities, and editors who are comedians and have great comedic sensibilities. Because if you do not have that, I don't care how hilarious the script was when it left the writer's room and how hilarious the actors were, you have nothing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I want to work in films and television and I want to like write and create television, like that's my ultimate goal, is to like show run things.
So your dream is to be a showrunner?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think when I started to be like, oh, wow, like all of my favorite shows were created by this like same like few people, and like, oh, cool. Like, I think I want to do that. And then I realized that those people are writers first and foremost, but they're also producers and they're also directors. And they need to have a really good understanding of, especially with comedy, like those people are very funny people. Like you can't be not funny and show run.
Oh yeah, 90% of the time the people show running could be in it if they wanted to, but they are needed for big picture problems. And so, you know, these are people who, these are uber humans, to steal from the language of the book. Oh, what's it called? By Thomas Lennon, Writing Movies for Fun and Profit. In that book, they use this term uber humans to describe producers, because the truth is these are impossible jobs. There's literally too many things to get done in these jobs. So it requires a special level of like, you don't get stressed as easily. You enjoy the sort of like adrenalized hustle of a long shoot, and you can do it all over again the next day.
Well, my thought on it is that like, because I do all these different things, it makes my very niche skill that much stronger.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a better producer and director because I've spent time working in the camera department, and I've spent time in front of the camera, and I've spent time as an editor.
Yeah.
So like, I know how to talk to all those different departments as a director better. Like,
I heard there was a good book recently about how it's like actually specialization's not the tool, because like if you combine multiple skills, then you have like a unique combination on understanding of your main skill, the way you just said it. And like James Clear talks about it in Atomic Habits. He talks about how you can either be the best at one thing, or you can be the best at two things simultaneously that are unique to each other.
Yes. Like, that's the argument of like generalists, and why being a generalist is actually a benefit. You know, you need to be like a medium level generalist. You don't want to be like a brush of like a Wikipedia page of each skill. You want to be like at least a couple of textbooks of each skill generally. And then you find yourself in a really like uber position.
Yeah.
Or you can get too in the weeds and be just someone who somehow miraculously, I don't even know if it's possible, to be like an expert on, you know, say 5 different skills. I don't think you can.
Yeah.
But that's also why what we do is collaborative. Like, you know.
Yes, exactly. Enough to be able to give good notes, to be able to do it yourself if needed, but you don't consider yourself an expert.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I get that.
I mean, that'd be like me like walking up to the ghost of Eddie Van Halen and being like, oh yeah, I rip on guitar too.
Right. Yeah. And be like, okay, show me. And then you play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. No, that's the Wikipedia page. You play
I play Wonderwall.
There you go.
Oh man.
I love it.
I mean, I'm wondering too, like how it is so funny that we sort of stumble into these things that you end up kind of doing that maybe broaden your experience. Like, have there ever been any like unforeseen like outcomes for you from like maybe a thing that you kind of were like forced to do because, an agent or manager told you to do it, but then it ended up actually being something really beneficial or really even just joyful for you?
Interesting question. I mean, a lot of my music production work has been a means to an end, like, wanting songs for things I'm working on. And so like, I've been studying piano merely out of just trying to be able to be better at creating songs that I sing on and then perform in front of the camera. So like, I don't know if it was an agent or a manager per se that ever recommended something for me that I was like, oh wow, this ended up being a passion of mine.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Pop Roulette, my music skills were for like, especially production, like pop sounds and stuff. I was like forced to level up. I was like, it was like level up or like be okay with mediocrity. And so, I definitely feel like that was a skill that was like something that I unintentionally went from good to great at. I don't know, it's not like I've ever had a casting director say like whistle. I mean, I was like wearing stubble for a little bit in my mid-20s, which looking back, I'm like, no. But like they would regularly ask me to shave. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh yeah, they were right. And so like that was something. And then, yeah, I guess like that's the main stuff.
I'm actually curious, before you created Fuck Boys, had you written a musical before, or was that the first musical that you'd written?
I hadn't written any full-length musicals. I wrote the music for the Dead Dads Club, which ran at UCB. I had done music for Maud Night, like a lot. And we had done like sketches, musical sketches. And then we had done Pop Roulette Amazing Earth, which I did a lot of the music for. But when it came to any full-length musical shows, I don't think so.
So was that like a new sort of experience like for you fully, or was it just like really easy and natural since you had already been writing individual sketches that had music in them and then you and Ken just sort of pieced them together? It
took a whole year. We started in March 2018 and finished and did our spank in April 2019. And we would write all the songs first, every single song. And first we outlined the story. Then we wrote the songs that each scene would conclude on. And it would force us to decide the game of the song. Instead of like writing the scene and then having to emerge out of the scene, we would have really strong games in each song. And then we worked backwards and wrote the scenes.
Oh, interesting. That's really cool.
It was cool. And I was sort of like, are you sure you want to do that, Ken? And he was like, yep, that's how we're doing it. And I was like, okay. And he had listened to like a bunch of Broadway podcasts. He's like people don't know this about Ken McGrawley. He's the biggest Broadway fan I know. He listens to all these like talking Broadway podcasts. And so Broadway Beat, 5 Steps to 42nd Street podcast. And so he was like, no, and this a lot of people say this is how they do it on the podcast. And I was just like, oh, okay. All right, then that's how we'll do it then. And so that's how we did it.
Well, it worked.
It was not easy. Hard work.
That's, a lot of hard work. It is so funny. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to have a nice long run at the theater before everything went to shit. Because you did how long did you run? Almost a year?
Yeah, like 9 months. It was wild. It was special though.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Like I had been right before, this is actually funny. In retrospect, I had been working on a spank with a few people for a year. We started in March 2019, and we had one spank in September of 2019, and we got some really great notes, and we got really positive feedback. So we made our tweaks, but then the holidays happened, and we finally got our next spank date was March 16th, 2020, and we had our tech.
Oh boy.
And then the show just never happened because the theater
It just
shut
never
down.
happened. Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. We had the first spank and it was really wonderful, and we have a video of it, so whatever.
Yeah, well, a video is an asset, Once you have tape, then you can pitch it in places to for a run.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever that starts happening again,
Oh,
in
man.
2025.
So depressing.
I know that this year has been really weird, and at the beginning of quarantine, everyone was like, you got to be working on your whatever, and take this time and use it wisely. And then a couple months in, people were like, don't beat yourself up if you're too sad to do anything. It's okay.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on even just trying to do what we do and what we're meant to do in these very strange set of circumstances?
Well, I'm definitely a deep believer in habit and trying to just, whether it's good or bad, writing every day, no matter what, whatever you shit out, it's valid. And there's no such thing. I just got this from Seth Godin. There's no such thing as writer's block. There's only fear of bad writing. And so if you just allow yourself to crap it out, whether it's good or bad, you don't have to release it. Right. And a lot of people are being forced to confront their demons now. And I think that this was really hard for a lot of people, especially people who had momentum before. It felt, our brains don't understand the difference between no for a reason and no. To me, it felt like I failed, but I didn't fail. The world broke. And so be kind to yourself, build new habits, and stick with those. Because those habits are going to be the thing that when the going's good again, you'll have. And if you can create new habits in a pandemic, you sure as hell can create them when there isn't one. And so I think if you make those promises with yourself and you get that accountability buddy and you make that habit tracker, that's one wonderful way to keep the dream alive.
That. And it's so true. Especially for what we do, only part of it is being on stage or auditioning or whatever, or being on a shoot. But a big part of it is just working kind of silently on your own or in small groups, which we can do digitally over Zoom, and just working on building those habits, and especially writing or working on your craft and stuff.
Right. You could. Yeah. Watch all those series you never said you had time for. I know that's a cliche, but I'm excited to finally watch The Sopranos.
Anyway, thank you so much for a really lovely conversation. This has been so fun to catch up with you, and also just talk creativity and talk the industry and talk all the bullshit, and it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Angela.
Of course. Thanks, Dougie. Oh man, thank you so much, Doug, for joining me on the podcast. I told you, we covered so much stuff, the spectrum of topics. I truly, you know what? One for the books. If you take one piece of advice from this convo, listen to Doug and put in the work. You can follow Doug on social media and check out Very Own Song. I'll put the links to everything in the show notes for that. And as for this podcast, you can like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm not going to get mad about it. Fuck, if you want to leave a review, that would be cool. Just hit, a couple of stars, 5 or so. That would be dope. That's it for me, guys. Until next time, I'll talk to you. Bye. Hey, wait. The episode is not over yet. Okay? Instead of our traditional outro music, today I wanted to take us out with one of Doug's songs. so you can see a little bit of what he actually does and what he's so fucking good at. Here is Jackson Pollock.
Y'all, this song goes out to everyone who's ever made a mess and said, "Isn't that beautiful?" When I drop a tea bag on the plate, Jackson Pollock. When I spill a little soap on the sink, Jackson Pollock. When I lose a bunch of change on the ground, Jackson Pollock. When I drop my coffee and it goes down, Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock. When I make a mess, I just call it Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. When I don't know what to call it, I just call it Jackson Pollock. When I get a haircut and it falls, Jackson Pollock. When I knock over some books at the mall, Jackson Pollock. This salad got a little out of hand, Jackson Pollock. When I enter after being in the sand, Jackson Pollock. I've been a really messy boy from the very start. When I knock over some shit, I just call it art. Messes I'm making them, objects I'm shaking up when they fall down, pictures I'm taking them. Throw a little soup, smash a little vase. When I see a pile of leaves, I just have to pause. Wow, dynamic. When I drop a bunch of freshly laundered clothes, Jackson Pollock. When I run through a flock of wild crows, Jackson Pollock. When I swoosh a bunch of paint with my toes, Jackson Pollock. When I blow a bunch of crap out my nose, Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock. When I make a mess, I just call it Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. When I don't know what to call it, I just call it Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock. When I drop some shit, I just call it Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. Ayy. I'll leave it just like this, and I'll call it Jackson Pollock. Chaos is beauty. Disorder is art. Take something structured and tear it apart. Find a blank canvas and cover it fast. Now is your future. This art is your past. Whoa. Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock. When I make a mess, I just call it Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. When I don't know what to call it, I just call it Jackson Pollock. Okay. Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock. When I drop some shit, I just call it Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. Ayy. Jackson Pollock. Ayy. I'll leave it just like this, and I'll call it Jackson Pollock. Alright, it's been real fun hanging out with y'all. Now don't forget to hit up your modern art museum and check out some abstract expressionism.